Welcome to Rock the Crown. Hey, what's up, Crown Nation? It's your girl, your queen, Naima. And today you're watching and listening to Rock the Crown podcast, the show that talks all about leading a full life and the legacy of a Muslim woman. And today we're talking about life coaching for young adults, introducing Dream Chaser University. But unfortunately, Coach Daaiyah is in Egypt experiencing a blackout, but she won't be able to join us today, but I'm going to go ahead and explain and go into her program today. And so, again, thank you all so much for joining us. So, the newest venture of Coach Daaiyah Shakir is Gen Z life coaching. Her passion about basically teaching young adults and guiding young adults is high on the spectrum. I'm not for sure if you've ever seen some of our episodes previously where she's always talking about young people, because that is her thing. And with this new certification, now she's actually able to help them and move them right along into their dreams and their own personal passions. She has her recent certification from ADWAM School of Life and Coaching. And as a certified life coach by ADWAM School of Life and Coaching, Training and Certification, she has learned the tools to guide individuals towards self discovery, growth, and ascent. This is so integral for our young people because they also need life coaches. And as you know, and if you don't know, life coaches actually help individuals to succeed in life 90% more than if you did not have a life coach. So, highly recommend life coaching for people in business as well as our young people who are moving through stages right now that are very difficult. But one of the expertise within this ADWAM school is the expertise and understanding of Islamic self development through the lens of Islam, which undoubtedly helps to empower the young people and helps to align their lives with their faith. Now, how many times have you noticed and have you heard conversations about how can we bring the young people along for the next generation? And actually, the next generation is actually already in motion. But what we want to do is making sure that we are aligning future generations, not just the next generation, but generations 2, 3, and 4 generations after us, because they are going to be able to take the mantle of Islam that we have laid the foundation for them and move forward without any delays, inshallah. So now what we want to do, because of her passion and certification, we want to kind of discuss some problems facing young people today. And as you know, this is why, of course, the life coaching is so important. So Gen Z life coaching is essential for those people who are facing some of these um, challenges in their life. Young people in America, of course, are navigating quite a complex landscape. Some of the prevalent issues that they face include mental health challenges. We know that a lot of these mental health challenges occurred not just before the pandemic, but largely after the pandemic. And one of the things that we should really look into is making sure that when you're talking about the mental health issues of our youth, that you know the difference between mental health and people who are experiencing depression, suicide, versus people who are trying to use that as an scapegoat to not have to fulfill their responsibilities. And one way that you can do that is definitely reaching out to your community to see if there are any certified mental health uh, experts in your community. Mental health, there are certifications under mental health and suicide prevention that people in the community can get, and they will be able to observe young people to see if any of the young people are experiencing any of those challenges just through behavior and conversations that they have with them. So that's extremely important. And so, as young people are facing these mental health issues, you'll find them being challenged to rise to the occasion and be their best selves. And so these are some of the things that having a life coach can kind of help them overcome some of these mental challenges. But also, one thing we want to note is that being a mental, being a life coach does not certify any life coach to be a counselor. There are life coaches that are counselors, but mental health issues are not the same as addressing mindset issues which arise within young people. So we also understand and know that young people are not going to a life coach for counseling. That's important to note. Another thing that young people are facing is self awareness and self esteem, especially because of the impact of social media on self esteem and communication. This is so important because the young people that are into social media, they are looking for the likes. They're looking to be acknowledged. And oftentimes, as they're growing up in this sociological time right now that is inundated with social media, sometimes them not understanding who they are and the self awareness is a little low. And because sometimes some of the parents who are still, who are basically a generation ahead of them, who are just coming into the social media drama or extreme, I would say, the social media, what do you call that? Era. So I'll use that word, social media era. They find themselves also suffering and or not understanding how social media is impacting the self-awareness of young people. And again, this is another thing that young people are facing, but understanding that a life coach can help them through the mindset issues that they're having when they are dealing with these social media issues, self-esteem, and of course communication. And one thing about communication with young people is that we often know that young people use social media sometimes as an outlet to be what is known as passive aggressive. They're not able to necessarily express themselves in front of people, they're only able to express themselves through social media. And that is something that has to be really taught and learned. And if it hasn't been learned previously by through their experiences of what they've seen in their environment, then it is something that becomes very, very difficult as they get older because we know that passive aggressive behavior is very unhealthy and it does not allow for a person, especially a young person, to be themselves. And so we're looking for, again, these life coaches to take us through these challenges and to help address the means of communication for young people. Another thing that young people are facing is educational stresses, including student debt, so societal concerns such as political polarization and climate change. And when you start thinking about student debt, it's so interesting because, of course, yes, we want our children to go to school, but school is definitely not what it used to be. It used to be where it was within the system that children had to basically go to school, graduate from high school, and it was seen that yes, you are going to college. And now that young people are not doing that, we're finding that there is a big disparity in terms of how they see the world and understand the dynamics of something as simple as the politics in America and something as simple as just understanding who the historical aspect of America because they are not in school. And so these are some of the challenges that they're having and they're facing. But as they're moving forward, they just need basically a hand. And so, student debt, they're going to school, having, spent 4, 5, 6 years and leaving school with possibly a job making 60,000 if they're lucky, 75,000, 80,000 if they're lucky. And knowing that their debt to income ratio is still excessively high. So even though they may have a job that is paying $60,000, they may be $120,000 in debt. And so life and business coaching will help young people to understand how they can alleviate that debt in a easier way as they're matriculating through college and some of these trade programs that they sometimes are enrolled in. Also, societal concerns such as political polarization. Well, the political polarization, today's congressional polarization, basically, this has been in the making for an extremely long time. So, the analysis of members' ideological scores finds that the current standoff between Democrats and Republicans is the result of overlapping trends that have been basically playing themselves out over and over and over, and sometimes reinforcing each other for decades. So you'll see that sometimes, oh, this is a Republican issue, or oh, this is a Democratic issue. And then in a couple of years, you'll see how that oftentimes is flipped. Well, young people are experiencing this. And so now they see that both parties have basically grown ideologically more, a little almost cohesive, where there's really not any moderate Democrats and Republican left in Capitol Hill, which a long, long, long time ago you used to have where mostly all of the Democrats and Republicans on Capitol Hill were moderate, and it is no longer that space. And the young people are experiencing that, and some other things that they're experiencing when it comes to political polarization is that the geographic and demographic demographic makeup of both congressional parties has drastically changed. And we know that even here in Georgia, as we see or we saw how Stacey Abrams and her campaign was able to change a red state to a blue state now. And some of these things, when you start thinking about red state versus blue state, the young people again are experiencing these things. And then so their mindset in terms of how they play into politics is being greatly affected. And so now you'll see that most of these Republicans are now coming from southern states, which, of course, nearly half of the House Democrats are Black, Hispanic, or Asian slash Pacific Islander, and this makes up a large variety of people that are basically being seen inside of the House. But how those numbers play out in terms of how they vote and how it's seen is very, very interesting. And again, young people are being affected by that, and a life coach will help them to understand that political polarization. The next thing what we talked about is climate change. Now, when we were younger, we weren't thinking anything about climate change. We ran outside, had a good time. It was if it was hot, we stayed outside all day, and if it was cool and we stayed inside. And the times in which we stayed outside, it used to be a time where it was snowing all the time when it was winter time. So you could actually see the climate was where it needed to be at that time. When it was summer, it was summer outside, not scorching hot 3/4 of the year. So even now, we'll have these days in the wintertime where it's 53, 60, 70 degrees in the United States, which is not normal. And in some of those areas, you'll see where it'll also be excessive temperatures. So, like here in Georgia, we're experiencing temperatures as low as in the 30s, 20s, and it's supposedly supposed to be in the 19s going into next week. But even despite they saying that that's going to happen, today it was actually 53 degrees, even though this morning it started out at 27 degrees. And so this experiencing of climate change is something that young people are experiencing and having to deal with, and it will affect their not only their mood but how they move across the landscape when it comes to building businesses for themselves. And so something as simple as a a clothing company. They're going to have to make shifts and understand the climate change in order to be able to make T-shirts when the time is necessary, as well as sell sweatshirts when the time is necessary. And sometimes I talk to my sons and I tell them, man, a young person, a millennial, they can wear a sweatshirt on the entire year. It doesn't matter if it's winter, spring, summer, or fall. They're wearing a sweatshirt, but the word is sweatshirt. So you'll be sweating even in the summertime if you're wearing that shirt during that time period. But that can greatly affect a clothing business that is trying to do something in that way. And again, leaning back into the life coaching for the young people, the Gen Z life coaching that Coach Daaiyah will be able to help them pattern themselves in alignment with the Quran, as well as in alignment with the business acumen. Something else to note about climate change is that now John Kerry, who was the top US climate diplomat, he intends on stepping down after more than 3 years relentlessly pressing countries and everybody else to become more aggressive in the fight against global warming. And according to people with a knowledge of this matter, him stepping down actually has a lot to do with him also trying to help Mr. Biden as he is trying to become re-elected. And we know that that in and of itself is also going to affect young people as we're moving into the future. Another issue that young people are faced with as they are dealing with the society is self-awareness. Self-awareness is different than self-esteem. Self-awareness is basically how are they in the world? How do they see themselves? And how are they being reassured that who they are is really okay? And sometimes we hear these sayings, be who you are, but oftentimes it's not, as we would say in an Islamic term, it's not being lined up with what is the sunnah of Allah. And so when you start thinking about what is lawful by God, it's a lot of things in the society that's telling you everything goes and everything can go. And we don't want our young people to be affected in that way. And so they have to really have a great sense of self-awareness. The next thing that young people are facing in this day and time is cultural and spiritual identity. And so what you'll find is that culturally, yes, we do have cultural expressions as Muslims in America, which is totally different than the cultural expressions that you'll find in other countries, especially African countries and Asian countries. And as you know, and if you didn't know, the continent of Asia is still the largest continent that has the most number of Muslims in the world. And so, as this navigation is happening, when you start thinking about culture and start seeing things within the Islamic community, we really have to ask ourselves, culture are we what culture are we living through here in America? And that has a lot to do with clothing and music and food. It has a lot to do with our expression, our arts, all of these things basically come together to create the culture. And when we start thinking about Islamic culture, we want to make sure that it is a great mix of what we have here in America, not necessarily having our young people identify with other cultures. And because we're in America, we're saying that that is American culture. So that is extremely important. And again, having that cultural identity is going to help them as they navigate through life and through this life coaching with Coach Daaiyah, they'll be able to do that. And having a spiritual identity. And this is something that when you start thinking about young people and their spiritual identity, I think sometimes young people see spirituality as something that is temporal. And spirituality is definitely not the same as religion. And so when you start thinking about, yeah, these young people are Muslim, but what is their spiritual identity and how are they executing that on a daily basis? And because this life coaching experience that comes from ADWAM School of Coaching, Training, and Certification, this is one of the things that they teach children and young people about was, again, self-discovery, growth, and ihsan. And that's going to be important in terms of their own spiritual development as they're growing up and soon to be parents, right? Start thinking about these young people in their teens, but eventually they will become parents. Something else that they're experiencing is a lack of career counseling and guidance. When's the last time did have you heard of a student having counseling classes or life classes? So, of course, when I was younger, we had home ec and we had cooking classes, and I mean, even as young as even my youngest son was in cooking classes in high school, and he now is 23. And so I don't know how they're doing it now in mostly all of the schools, but there are some things. Wood shop used to be something that teenagers were had access to, clay making, all of those types of things. And so it really taught us a lot about trade. How, if you had sewing, you made that apron. If you had sewing, you also made that pot holder, or you crocheted a pot holder. Those types of things. And so when you're thinking about career counseling, it used to be a time where there were only 175,000 jobs in the world. And now that we're living in the time of 2024, there are over a million jobs. So it's very difficult for young people to have a sense of counseling when it comes to a career because there's so many different opportunities. But with the counseling that they would get from Coach Daaiyah, she would definitely be able to steer them in a way that, number one, reflects their passion, because sometimes what they are passionate about is something that Allah instilled in them that needs to come to the surface for the need of the community. One thing we also want to talk about is that even though it doesn't look like it's something that you would do as an older person, it doesn't mean that that need is not there for younger people. So that's something very, very important to think about. Something else that uh, young people are seeking is they're really having a lack of guidance, and guidance in so much that sometimes we find our parents is experiencing something in the way of, if they're going to a Muslim school, sometimes the parents rely solely on the school to make their children Muslim, meaning that they're really relying on the school to teach them everything. And it's both a this is a category and a situation where we need both the parents and the community to help build those children up. And again, Coach Daaiyah would be able to help them in that way to find a even platform and an even way to move forward, even if they don't have the necessary support at home. And so, Daaiyah is not here to share her coaching framework, but we'll make sure that we get something out so that you can see what her coaching framework is. She is going to be, of course, providing a space for expression, because that is crucial. And combining that with positive problem solving can be very, very empowering for young people. What she also likes to do is utilize strategies like guided meditation and creative visualization that will offer effective tools to manage stress and anxiety, and allow for those young people to plan for the future. And when they can plan for their own future and do it step by step, that is so empowering for them. And then when they see results of their labor, it is doubly empowering, because now they know, hey, I have a framework, I have a way to go, and I see that there are results. And once they see results, they will continue to perpetuate that same type of behavior in order to get more results that they found successful. And last but not least, Daaiyah is actually seeking help from parents and students to participate in a focus group and survey, because this is really, really important when it comes to young people, because there is very, very little data specifically for Muslim youth that can engage them in ways that can tell about all of these things that we talked about and the experiences that they are and or are not having. And so you want to talk about, hey, how can we get our young people to see more minded things, or to see themselves in the future? Sometimes you need a focus group and a survey in order to see where they're at currently, because if you're only assuming it, it does not mean that that data is statistical and or correct. And analyzing that data is going to help us go into the future to see how those young people can make progress, especially if they're reaching out to Coach Daaiyah from the Gen Z Life Coaching Program. So, we talked about a lot of things today, starting from the top. Again, this is Gen Z Life Coaching with Coach Daaiyah. She's not here today, but I am sharing with you her entire, um, speaking about her life coaching today. And some of the challenges that we talked about where young people, they have mental health challenges, they're having self-awareness and self-esteem challenges because of social media and self-esteem. They're having an impact. Social media is having an impact on how their self-esteem and communication comes out. We're also having educational stresses, including student debt, societal concerns, such as political polarization and climate change. And we talked a little bit about both of those things. Again, self awareness is important for each of the young persons when they're coming into Islam and when they already are a Muslim, because self awareness means that I see myself and I recognize who I am. And sometimes they want to see that emulated in the environment around them. They're also facing cultural and spiritual identity, and of course, the lack of career counseling and guidance. And Daaiyah is here through her framework to help each and every one of those young persons identify their issues, tap in, gain growth, gain ihsan, use Islam as a tool and a means to get them to their final goal. And hopefully, if you have any questions about the Gen Z life coaching, you can definitely reach out to Coach Daaiyah, and just use our email, rockthecrown4us@gmail.com. Again, rock, ROCK, the crown, CROWN, for the number four, us@gmail.com. So rock the crown for us@gmail.com. In the subject line, tag Coach Daaiyah. And Daaiyah is Daiyah, and we will get that information over to her. If you'd like your children to be, or your young people to be signed up in that program, I'm sure that she's more than willing to assist you with that. And if I'm not mistaken, the program itself and the courses and everything will start later this year. But if you want some immediate attention, I'm sure that she would have some time available to assist you and your young people. So, thank you so much, Crown Nation, for joining us today for this short episode of Life Gen X Life Coaching with Coach Daaiyah. But don't forget that we still need your support. So we're asking for you to like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Instagram. And until next time, Crown Nation, we hope to see you again soon. Peace out and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.